What is up, gamers? Welcome to the channel. Hope you're doing well. I have another tier list for you, and this one's going to be on the Starforge basic units. I have a whole bunch of other tier lists already, so please go check those out if you haven't seen them yet. And let's say we just jump right into this one. First up, we have the Dragonfly. The Dragonfly, I think I'll put in the A tier. Starting off pretty strong with this one. The Dragonfly is just a super fast air unit that's very good at raiding, and if your opponent has not made any kind of anti-air units yet, this thing's going to just destroy and dominate everything. And even if you were to somehow build up a big enough group of these, big enough mass, you could just mow down everything because they shoot up and down. So even if you have a large enough group, these can even take out anti-air units. Keep in mind, you do have to have a pretty sizable group in order to do that, but it is possible, and I've done it. And it's pretty crazy when you get a big group of these, and you can just have them flying around from base to base, taking out units, while your opponent, is spinning around trying to figure out where they're going to go next. They can be pretty hard to keep under control if you don't shut them down early. So definitely a very fun unit to use and very strong as well. Alright, and next up we have the Airship. I'm going to have to put them in the S tier. Airship is just the ultimate counter to any Starforge basic air units. If you have these airships and your opponent doesn't, if they're trying to go air at all in the basic Starforge unit category, you're just going to run them over with these. They're just going to be able to take down anything that flies. So on top of that, they're also decent at shooting down at other ground units as well. They're not going to hold up too well to other anti-air ground units, so you do need to be aware of that and a little careful of that. But that being said, if your opponent is trying to go for dragonflies, butterflies, falcons, whatever, the airship's just going to rule the air, and your opponent's not going to be able to get away with that. So I think I had to put them in the S tier for that alone, just being the one unit that can just counter the rest, basically. Typically, that's what you'll see people going for in one of their Starforge slots, just to have that counter to be able to shut down their opponent if they decide they want to try air units. So for that reason, we'll stay in the S tier. Next up, then we have the Advanced Recall. I'll put the Advanced Recall in the B tier. They have some potential. They could be very strong. They've got really good DPS. The problem is they're squishy, and in order to really do any real, serious amount of work with them, you got to have a pretty big number of them grouped up, and so they're just going to end up getting countered though by your opponent's AOE units. So it's just really tough to make these things work, especially since there's usually just better options to go with that are cheaper in that core unit slot. It's just tough to find a place for these in your unit deck, but they can be fun to use, and they can be very strong in the very niche correct circumstance that you want to use them. The one thing I think that would be fun is if you could somehow sneak these around and try to snipe off one of your opponent's resource bases or something with their high DPS. They should be able to take those down pretty quickly. But other than that, I think they're worthy of B tier. Not too bad, but not too good either. So let's move on to the Butterfly here. The Butterfly is tough. I like the Dragonfly better, so I think I'll put the Butterfly in A tier below the Dragonfly here. They are better at shooting against ground units, but they don't have the versatile option of being able to shoot towards air units. But they are, they're stronger against the ground units, but they're also at the same time, squishy and can be taken out quickly. So they're similar to the Dragonfly in that sense, but they don't have the option of shooting air as well. And like I said with the Dragonfly, you're not really going to be countering air units with the Dragonfly, but if you somehow manage to group up enough of them, they'll hold their own just fine. So if your opponent doesn't have any anti-air units, the Butterfly will just mow everything down then super quick, even faster than the Dragonfly. So yeah, I think they're definitely worthy of the A tier, just a little below the Dragonfly though. Next we have the Heavy Turret, and I think I'm gonna have to put them in the C tier. Honestly, I haven't seen these used too much, a little bit here and there, but their use case is just so niche, just for defense only pretty much, and defending against raiding units and whatnot, and they can be very good at that one small niche, but it's just in my opinion, not worth it over the other options that you have available. I like to play with more versatile units that can do a little more for me, and that can also be more aggressive. And with the heavy turrets, you're just going to be using them for defense only. So it's like I said in my previous tier list video, why run something like this when you could just run the mortars instead. I know that these turrets have the option of shooting air units as well, but it's like there's just so many other better ways to deal with that than with these, in my opinion. So for that, I'm gonna have to put them in the C tier. Next up, my favorite unit, the Falcon. So I actually do have these now. I've acquired them since I took this screenshot here. But yeah, so the Falcon, actually, I'm gonna have to put the Falcon above the airship even. The Falcon is like the Butterfly, only shooting ground units, and the DPS on the Falcon is just insane. It's just going to blow up all ground units pretty much. And the main difference between the Butterfly and the Falcon is the Butterfly is a little faster, the Falcon is super slow, except the Falcon is going to be much, much tankier. So when you have a big group of these massed up, they're going to actually be tanky enough and do enough damage to ground units that they can actually deal with a lot, if not most, of the anti-air ground units, especially the core ones. So if your opponent is just relying on, let's say the recall hunters or any of the other, core anti-air ground units, you actually can build up a big enough mass of these that you'll be able to wipe out all of his anti-air units. So it's very good in that regard, and it isn't actually getting nerfed as I thought it would in this most recent patch. So it's going to be just as strong, if not even better. So yeah, in my opinion, if you run the Falcon as one of your main Starforge units, you're going to be able to pull off a lot of wins with that, as your opponent will probably start making their core anti-air ground units, and you'll just end up running them over with that. And so you'll kind of catch them surprised with just how strong these Falcons can be. So for that, I think they're definitely worthy of that top spot in the S tier. Next up, we have the Mammoth. Mammoth, I'm going to have to throw at the top of A. I really like the Mammoth. The Mammoth is very good. It's a really tanky unit, one of the tankiest next to the Crusader. So if you're looking for a very strong frontline unit, Mammoth is a good way to go. It's very similar to the Crusader, except I think it's got a little less DPS. However, one advantage that does have over the Crusader is the range. It's actually got quite a bit more range than the Crusader, which I really like that about it, making it sometimes very good and effective at picking off different backline units that your opponent might have, something like the Mortar or the Shockers or something sitting in the back, and the Mammoth can even reach over top of some of those other tank units that are trying to defend. So I think the Mammoth is just very good, very strong in that regard, and definitely worth a slot in your Starforge if you feel you need that tank unit. And finally, last but not least, almost least, but not quite, I'll put them a little above the Advanced Recall in the B slot, the Steiner. Steiner is a very fun unit to use and can be very good in the right hands. You just gotta play them kind of like the Wasp, except they're so expensive. But they have really good damage, but they're very squishy and easy to pick off and kill if you're not careful with them. So if you put these in the right hands of someone who's able to micro these all over the map in little groups and attack little groups over here, small group over there, pick off some workers, maybe even snipe a resource base or something, they can be very effective at that. But if you let your opponent build up too big of an army, and if they start pushing in on your base or something, it's going to be very difficult to use these then. These Steiners need a lot of space, a lot of room to spread out and move all over the place to be able to basically sneak attack your opponent and whatnot. But they can be very good at that. And I think that's going to be it for this tier list. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon in the next one.